Hello, and welcome to my show, The Thriving Woman. I am your host, Carmel Austin.
Monday, another week, I can't believe I'm counting down the minutes till it's Tuesday. Another day back on.
I will be sharing keys to help you form healthy hearts and boundaries. I'll see you in the show. Hello, this is Carmel Austin here. Welcome to another episode of The Thriving Woman. Today I have my lovely friend Sarah with me, and we're going to be talking about all the amazing things that are happening in Sarah's life and the journey of friendship and the things that have gone on in our lives, particularly in the last 12 months. Sarah is one of my beautiful co-authors in our book, The Artist Haven. And I've just had the absolute privilege of getting to know Sarah, getting to know her larrikin behaviours stirring me up as an Aussie because she lives in New Zealand. So Sarah, welcome to the Thriving Woman Show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Even if you are an Australian.
Yes, well, there could be some jokes and some fun going on in this episode.
Absolutely. If sisters across the ditch can't, yank each other's change and poke each other in the side every now and again, you'd have to wonder what we're doing.
And of course, I end up talking like a fair dinkum Aussie, which I don't normally do, but Sarah thinks I do all the time.
Yeah, mate. She's always like bringing it out really broad, just like,
You got it, mate. Oh dear. So any of you caught our celebration of our book, The Artist Haven? There was lots of larrikin things that went on in the recording with all of our team, as well as afterwards. And so, it's just been such a pleasure getting to know Sarah. Sarah and I actually were in a coaching group together that we first connected with, and then she came into my Thriving Woman group, which I have on Facebook. So I am a wholeness coach, a mentor, speaker, and of course a podcast host. How I became a podcast host is that my book, Just Say No, which was my first book, I shared my story in that. And I was so blessed to be part of that book that I got really excited and thought, I got offered my TV show and my podcast show. And I thought, I have a dream to write books myself. And that's how the journey started with us, with The Artist Haven. So Sarah and I jumped on a call similar to this, and we chatted about life and the road that we've taken together. And as you can see, there's always lots of fun and lots of silliness that goes on, but it's just so much. It's so good. It's so good. You can see that Sarah and I have beautiful coloured glasses. We both wear Erlen lenses, and I think that our braids are very similar as well with some of the things that we have to face in life. So Sarah, after you have your sip of coffee this morning, would you like to share a little bit with my audience your journey and the things that you are up to with Granny Mac?
Oh my gosh, do people really want to know about that stuff? It sounds it's wonderful. It's such a privilege. Don't get me wrong. It is such a privilege. And I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to speak about the Artist Haven book and about the fun that we've had in bringing that to publication, and also about the stuff that I'm doing with Granny Mac and the ADHD community and so on. But I always think, when you first get introduced and it's like, this is what she's done and this is what she's done and this is what she's done. And it's like, flip, did I really do all of that stuff? And do people really want to know about that? Do you really want to know that I used to be a bar manager? Do you really want to know that I used to be a rugby union referee? Do you really want to know that I was a second female referee in Otago rugby? In the Otago rugby, like it's just like there's all this stuff, we're amazing people, and it's incredible. You go to funerals, and I've gone to a few recently, and you find out all this stuff about people that you didn't know before, and you think, gosh, that makes them so much more interesting. I wish I could have had that conversation before. And so it's now having these conversations, being able to bring out the fullness of the kind of person that I am, that you are, and that, that we can have so much fun doing it. If you're not having fun, then what's the point, is my philosophy, I guess. Being very serious for a number of years and taking everything very seriously, it really sucked the fun out of life for me. And while it's important to do the important things, it's also really important to have fun doing it. I have ADHD. I've been diagnosed for a year now, so I'm a late diagnosis. But when you look through my school reports, it's there in Technicolor. Could do better if only she tried harder. Could do better if she didn't daydream. Could do better if. Could do better if. Could do better if. I was bored to flipping tears, and so you get the opportunity to train wreck. I hate it when that happens. Thank you, God, for an amazing memory and a wonderful recall.
You get the opportunity to realize that we are different. Each person is unique. And
absolutely,
that God has created us uniquely. And if you're like me, Sarah, I grew up with all of those things: distracted, not concentrating, not doing what is expected of me.
Because there was so much else going on in my head. There were so many stories that were going on in my head. There were so many scenarios that were going on in my head. We had a test one day, I remember, and the teacher was trying to get us to listen to different sounds to see what the sound was. Me and my brain, I was looking, what sort of sound effect is this? It was water running down a tube, down a drain. And so you had that effect. And I was thinking, what could that be a sound effect for? And you could hear the crushing wheat bix. And it was like, what could that be a sound effect for? And I couldn't get my head around what the sound effect might be. And so I bombed on that test. I knew exactly what every single sound was. I'd gone one step further and was looking for the sound effect. And I think that's kind of where I go. It's great in some respects, because somebody will say something to me and I'm, already 90 yards down the road, running with the idea and looking at how it could work out and how it might be. And so I can look to the future and say, okay, so have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about something else? And they're like, hang on a minute, I'm still at the starting line. Why are you at the 90-yard mark? And it's like, oh, oops, sorry, and have to pull myself back. And certainly having the diagnosis of ADHD has made that a lot better, because now I can recognize that and go, okay, so that's a later question, that's a later question, that's a later question. And so I can write all of this stuff down. And I say to them, okay, come back to me in 6 months when you're ready for the next bit, or come back to me and, come back to me. Because this is where I see it's going. Here's the big picture. So that can be a little daunting when people first meet me, that I have such a big picture view of things, where, perhaps they're down here, if you can see on the screen, there's bales of hay here just by my thumb, and I'm way the heck up the top of the mountain, having a look at the valley and looking at all the different paddocks with all, and how all those bales might float away if there was a massive flood, which they won't, because we're not on a floodplain, but that sort of thing. So Granny Mac, to get back to your question, I'm circling back, thank you. Granny Mac is my alter ego. So my adopted grandsons have called me Grandma Sarah for many years. And when I married my sweet man, his last name is McCall, as mine is now too. And so they shortened it and they said, well, we can't call you anything other than Granny Mac, because they were already calling my sweet man Papa Mac. So that's where Granny Mac has come from. And when I was out on the truck, I'm also a heavy transport driver, and I was driving a bulky truck. So that's taking a truck out onto the farm with somewhere between a 5 to 7.5 ton load of fertilizer in the back, and then you're spreading that by just, driving around and around in ever decreasing circles in effect. And it gave me the opportunity to play a lot of podcasts, listen to a lot of music, and have a lot of questions. And the beauty of it was that because of faith, I was able to say, God, what about this? And God, what about that? And so there's a lot of conversations that I need to write down because they were really interesting. Whether or not they're interesting to anybody else is, anybody's guess. But in the beginning, now I believe I'm at the beginning of my writing career, public writing career. I've been writing for years, and I have big grocery bags full of journals with all these thoughts and all these ideas and things that I haven't really gone back to and looked at yet. And they're all there waiting to be opened and to see what gems are lying in that. So Granny Mac has published the first book in a series. It's called Cecil Gets a Haircut, and it's about a lamb who's got anxiety, and it can also be the anxiety that goes with Asperger's or autistic spectrum disorder. It may be the anxiety that goes with ADHD. It may be the anxiety that goes in social anxiety. It may be any kind of anxiety in essence. And so a fairly normal, relatively relatable experience that most people can understand is used to describe what this lamb goes through. And so we tell the story in fabulous rhyme about this lamb who woke up one morning and was told, oh, you're going to get a haircut today. And he's like, what? And it's his first ever, and he's really freaking out about it. And so it follows a story and how that gets resolved. Well, you just have to buy the book. But there's a whole lot of questions that come into that, especially for people who are neurodiverse. What's the experience like hearing the sound of the shears around your ears when you don't like loud noises anyway? And you find, and that's something I do. When I think about certain sounds that I don't like, it's a nervous twitch, if you like. But understanding that, it means that my husband can now say, okay, there's a sound here that my wife doesn't like. And so he has a visual cue that then takes him into oh, right, hang on a minute. What is it that's upsetting you, sweetheart? And so before it becomes overwhelming, we can then unpack that and say, okay, well, maybe you need to get your noise cancelling headphones out. And thankfully, I have a fantastic pair, and they're really amazing. So there's lots of different things that we can use to work around. So we both have the same office space, so I can put my noise cancelling headphones on. We can work in the same office space, which means I have the body double, which I need for ADHD. I need somebody else in my space, not doing anything with me, just being in the same space. And so that means that I can stay on target, I can stay on task, I can stay focused, especially when I'm trying to get into something. When we were working on the chapter for the Artist Haven, my husband would come and he would sit with me until I got started. And then I would, write whatever it was that was in my heart. And I think I wrote it about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because I got it back and you said to me, I'm not really sure that this is quite true to who you are. You need to go back and have another look at it. And so and the original draft was one that I'd written as a body double, in that body doubling scenario, sorry. And then I got up one morning about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I just poured my heart out into the page. And that's the chapter that's been included in the Artist Haven. And it's amazing because you gave me the privilege of going, I was going to say off-piste, and I was using a skiing analogy. You allowed me the privilege of not following the structure that you'd set up, because the way that it was written, you said, no, this is what we need. This is what's right. This is where it's at. And so being affirmed that what I'd written was useful for other people, it was such a high, to be given the privilege of being allowed to be myself, to be authentically myself, and to be able to connect in a way that was meaningful for somebody else and meaningful for not just the Christian community, not just the ADHD community, but maybe for neurotypicals who'd never thought about things in this way before. Maybe, people who are struggling. That's the beauty of faith, is that you do struggle, you do wrestle. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect, and it's okay. And that's what I find so exciting, is that we can come back to God and we can climb on his lap and we can go, it probably wasn't my best moment. And you can feel the smile from God, and it's like, yeah, it probably wasn't. How do you feel about that? What do you think about that? And then you get the privilege of being able to pour out your heart and just, this reminded me of when I was a little girl and this happened and blah, 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 blah. And you get to share that because God is timeless. And I don't need to be afraid or ashamed or fearful of having those conversations with God. And that's the beauty of something like the Artist Haven, is that we were able to have these big conversations of a big God and explore them honestly and explore them without fear of being rejected, because whether you're neurotypical, neurodiverse, we all end up with that fear of being rejected. It cuts to the very essence of who we are. And to be able to have those conversations with a big God who knows yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and who was there when you fell over and skinned your knee in front of the whole class, and you cut your chin right before the school photographs. And so now you can have that conversation with God that says, look, I felt so terrible when that happened, and it's there and it's in public record and everybody gets to see it. And he says, yeah, but you know what? That was less than 10 seconds of your life, and that does not define you.
Yeah.
And so you have the privilege of putting things in perspective and getting just a moment in time where you go, oh, you're right. Yeah, it was only 10 seconds. And yes, that was a snapshot. And it wasn't my best snapshot. I would have liked it to have been, 10 seconds earlier when I didn't have the cut chin and the bleeding knee and the skinned hands. But you know what? It's okay. And to have those big conversations, and that's what I'm doing with the books with Granny Mac, is to have those big conversations, and to provide a starting point where parents can connect, because I didn't have the tips, the tools, the techniques. I didn't know how to connect with my kids. And so part of Cecil, part of the book, is a teaching program that goes hand in hand with the book, which is to teach parents how to have open-ended conversations to be able to explore their kids' world in a way that's meaningful for the kids and a point of connection for the parents. So it's psychologically based. It's all of it science-backed. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, but I have had a lot of intentional conversations with people in those fields, and getting them well tested literally in the field for 20 or 30 years, probably more, before I bring them to the public and say, hey, look, I found this really helpful, so maybe it's going to be helpful for you. And if it serves you, that's awesome. And if it doesn't, that's okay. You don't need to let me know that it's.
And Sarah, that's what I found when you were writing your
around yourself and honor yourself.
Sorry.
No, you're all right.
So that's what I found when you were writing your chapter, we walked through that together, where your first, I think with the name got changed a few times as well, and you ended up with a blank page. You wrote, like you said, quite a few different versions, and I really felt that your first one was really true to who you were. And it's exciting to hear you be able to say that was such a point in your life where you felt like accepted who you are, your authentic self. And really, folks, that's what the Artist Haven is about. It's about each individual sharing their authentic self, but each one of them connects with me as the visionary and the lead author, and the dream that God gave me to birth this book and to invite people into this space, because really it was 9 months of going through the process. And I really relate to what Sarah says too. I had the vision, I already seen it completed, finished, what was going to happen, and I had to pull back and remember that everybody else had to come on the journey as well, and have the faith to believe all the right people that were going to share their story in the book. And we actually have link chapters where each person introduces the next person in the chapter, and that was something that one of our amazing authors came up with as well. So it was a journey. And when you do have that vision and you're out there, and you've got to be like that on the reins of the horse, and you got to pull it back in. And as the coach and the privilege to work with Sarah and all of my authors and get to read their manuscripts and be able to go back and give them some positive encouragement about it's okay to be who you are and what you're sharing. And her chapter is chapter 4 in the book, and it just fits perfectly. Each chapter, as I went through it all with Stephanie, it was just like God had ordained, where everybody sat in the book and one chapter led into the other. And
yeah, who'd have thought? Who'd have thought?
I had no
thought that God might have had his hand on this project in that manner. He's only the creator. He's only interested in what his girls are saying. But why would he be bothered to? And that was so cool. It was like you say, it was amazing to see how each of the chapters came together and how they flowed one from the next. And here we are, me in New Zealand, you in Australia, people in Malaysia and Czech Republic and America and Canada, and flippy days, here we are writing this truly global book, and we're all writing it together, and it all comes together. It wasn't seamless by any means. There are so many things that we had to overcome. There were so many things we had to work through individually. There were so many things we had to work through as a group, and yet we all pulled together. And that was so cool, seeing us all pull together, and we all had different roles to play, and all had different, some were supporting behind the scenes, some were out there, publicizing because that's where they felt really comfortable. Others were, pulling in, it was just so incredible the way that we've all come together. Yeah, it was an amazing project.
It was. And I feel like the book is Carmel Austin and Friends, and that's exactly what it is. All of our friends, we became family through this process. And this is just the beginning. We have this amazing book. Sarah's is in the post. Maybe by the time that this gets aired, she will have one as well. And even with our cover, Angie, I commissioned her to paint that and put the dragonflies on it, and then I had the privilege of being able to craft the whole cover in Canva with my VA Donna. And how it evolved, and the dreams that came together, and everyone's input. And what I loved, like you, Sarah, I don't want to just be sitting doing something on my own. I need someone in the room sometimes as well, and I like feedback, and I'll take on people's feedback, and I took on authors' feedback. Sometimes I mightn't have done everything that they said or put forward, but one thing I really loved was having everybody's input, everybody being able to feel like they were so entrenched in the journey of this book together. And we got our lovely Tim. He's our only male, and he just fits so beautifully into the book, into his story, where it flowed. He gave the testimony that Angie had had no money and God provided it. And Tim had the same thing. He started doing watercolor classes and God spoke to his heart and said, there, Tim, you can put your money towards that story. So everyone has this unique story of how they came in the book. Everyone has their unique story of who they are. And for me, as the lead author and the visionary of seeing the whole book come together and forming this amazing friendship with each person and how we connected with all of our meetings, all of our face group, all of the fun things with our launches, all of the hiccups we had with getting our book out. But I really believe that we all pulled together as a team. And, that is the thing that, I feel so blessed and privileged to, not just have Sarah sitting here with her beautiful smile on her face, but having all of my authors, and everyone is so special to me in such, we're all a team, but uniquely, I think Stephanie Rose in her gifts, I know Sarah encouraged me along the way as well when we had our one-on-one meetings. So, we just really encouraged each other and continued to move forward.
I say, old chap, stop it. You're getting far too soppy. Yeah, we appreciate it muchly, but it's just a little emotional. Just stop it already.
You can tell that Sarah's very theatrical, like I am, born for the stage, and actually in the middle of us doing the book, Sarah was in a production. Share with everyone what your production was, Sarah. I was so proud of you doing that.
Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. It was called Act Your Age. And the premise was amazing. It was about a very straight-laced do you remember Penelope Keith in To the Manor Born?
I have to admit, no.
Oh, okay. So I was brought up on those kinds of British, To the Manor Born and Yes Minister and things like that. So I was able to channel Penelope Keith for this particular role, and she was a very straight-laced, very over the top kind of person who was stressed out to the max. She'd put everything she possibly had into this celebrity sanctuary, and it was all falling down around her ears. And then the old folk down the road, there was a guy who'd gone through the water line in the trench when he was fixing the electrics or something like that, and so all the old folk got sent down to the celebrity sanctuary, which was failing anyway, and nobody really had a chance. There was nobody else there. So but then at the same time, there was this big celebrity coming. And so she had the old folk pretending to be celebrities who were on a rest and retreat, rest and relaxation. It's not, it's not this, it's rest and relaxation. So I was able to bring in some of the different voices and so on that I have an absolute ball to do. And our producer, one of the ladies got injured, unfortunately. And so our producer brought on stage a very strong Edinburgh accent, and we hadn't rehearsed it. And so as soon as she did that, she walked on stage, she said her line, and I came in straight after her, and I completely lost the accent that I was supposed to be using. And because it reminded me so much of one of my grandparents. And so I answered them back in pure Liverpudlian. And I was horrified at the same time. In my head, I was going, no. And so I had to bring it back to this, but it was brilliant. It was an absolute riot. There was all this hilarious physical comedy about how different people were getting caught in different ways, and the electrics in the sanctuary went out, and fires were happening, explosions, and the workmen in the trench, and it was just fabulous physical comedy, and it was all brilliantly timed. And we had a fabulous time, and we did this right at the same time as we're doing a book launch, because why not? ADHD to the max. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and when Sarah talks about all that, there was a lot of that going on around the book. We had lots of fires we had to put out, lots of
Yeah.
hurdles that we had to overcome. For me,
Not sure that you had this.
no, not quite. And for me, having people around the world, I was up early in the morning and late at night connecting with people. And,
Yeah.
that process that you go through, you remind me when you talk like that of Mrs. Bucket. I like watching her on
It's the
ABC.
Vicarian President's Lady of the
Yes,
House.
that's it,
You
Mrs. Bucket.
what
And
would
I
you
had the
say?
privilege too where Sarah interviewed me on, I can't think where it was, Sarah, on that platform that you're that you're on.
We did Clubhouse.
A
We did
clubhouse,
Clubhouse.
that's it,
Yeah.
clubhouse. And
Yeah.
we
That was
chatted
so much
about the
fun.
book and had some of our authors share their story on there as
Yeah.
well. And we had the privilege where the book went number one international best-selling author in 4
That was,
categories.
we ended up with 7, Carmel.
Oh, they are, look, they are
7.
7.
I got screenshots of a 7 because we were able to nominate 3 and
Yes,
then we
that's
got
right.
4 more. And that's where I think you've got the 4 from.
Yes,
I
you're
could be
right,
completely
actually.
wrong in that,
You're right,
but
because they
we
had
the girls,
categories.
yeah, the girls, and especially in the States and Canada, we couldn't do that because we were on the .com.au site. So we weren't able to do the reviews, and we did our reviews, but it was the girls in the States that really were the backbone of that campaign. And I'm just absolutely in awe of what they did. We did a whole lot of work. I know I did a whole lot of work around pre-selling the ebook and getting people on board for that. And that went really, really well. And so, but what we found out later was that because they were local purchases, some of them were local purchases. So they went through the .com.au, which means that the number one international bestseller didn't come through on the .com.au Amazon website, whereas it did go through on the .com Amazon website. So yeah, we had a few issues around that as well, and it was really interesting to find that out. But the girls that I contacted and connected with internationally, and that's the really cool thing about what we do and the technology that's available to us now. And a lot of people probably won't like me saying this, but I'm so grateful to COVID,
Yes,
because
me
we got
too.
into
It
this
was
platform and we got
transforming.
into doing this way
Yeah.
of business. And because we were forced into it for a couple of years, because we couldn't carry on the way that we couldn't do the jobs that we were doing because they all got shut down. And so I am really grateful to COVID for being able to do the things that we now do, which is to be able to be on the international scene in a way that was never thought of or even heard of 10 or 15 years ago. Certainly not to the extent that we are now.
Absolutely. COVID for me was a pause where I started to follow the dreams in my heart. And that's when I became a wholeness certified life coach, wrote my story. God had spoken to me in 2019 and said, you need to start writing. 3 decades I felt I needed to start to share my story and write it down. And here we are, for me, within a 2-year span or a 3-year span, this platform that God has given me and the privilege that I have with all these beautiful international friends that I have met and co-authors around the world, and us doing coaching together and learning together, that wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened without COVID.
No.
So COVID was a pivotal point for me to start to really dig into those places in my life. I've been working on my next book, Courageous Voices Unlocked. The backdrop for the book is sitting behind me, which I actually painted myself. I'm working on my kids' book that I wrote 10 years ago and illustrating that. And so all of those dreams and those things that, it's about the environment, it's about a dolphin called Silver, which I just made it up. I was at TAFE and we had 4 people in the group and we were all supposed to write something. And 3,000 words just flowed out of me. And I wrote this story about these children coming to the South Coast because it was environmental, and a dolphin called Silver. And he, character that came to life. He was, of course, he's not real and fictional, but yeah. And then this year, when I actually was in Susan's shop, and Susan is from the Art Hub and one of our authors in the book as well. She's a local friend. I was sharing with some of her students. I was doing a writing class with them, and I realised that this is me as that little girl who drove from Sydney to my auntie's place at Kalala. And I didn't even know when I wrote that was about me and my experiences in the Jarvis Bay and Kalala. And here I am 10 years later illustrating this book and learning how to put it together, and all the dreams and all the things in this series that I want to do for it. What a privilege, isn't it, Sarah, to be able to be seeing these dreams come to life, and us chatting about them, and knowing that, it's a privilege with my show that God gave me, and I jumped out there and said yes to it. And here we are, just over 12 months later, and all the amazing people. Series 2, I've been interviewing all of my authors, and it's just been an absolute privilege to do that. And then, I will then go into series 3, and it'll be another focus that we go to. But it's just been such a journey and an absolute privilege to do all of these things. So, Sarah, share with my audience the things through the process that if someone's wanting to really step out and, take that risk and write their story or share their story, what you found doing it as a team and with a coach, and how with that group of all of us, that experience to encourage them with, please.
Oh my gosh. Look, if it's in you to write, then for goodness sakes, get your pen out, get your keyboard out, whatever it is, flip and do it. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, seriously, what is the worst that can happen? And I think we really need to speak to that imposter syndrome. That so much came out of, so many people really struggled with that. And I know that, once I'd written the chapter, I was like, maybe this is too much. Maybe this is too deep. Maybe this is too this. Maybe this is too that. Look, it's common to us all. And we just need to actually smack that back to where it came from, because it's an absolute lie from the pit of hell. Like, who are you not? There's an incredible, who are you to play small? It's an incredible verse, and it was accredited to Nelson Mandela, and it's actually not. It's Marianne Williams. And she said, who are you not to play your part? Who are you to play small? You're God's child. Get your story out. It's just another part of an incredible tapestry that allows people to see into the Father's heart. And your experiences are every bit as valid as mine, as Carmel's, as anybody else who's ever written. And the beauty of being with the team is that we do connect in the team. And instead of going it alone and doing your own story, as I did with Cecil Gets a Haircut, and I still had a team there, but I was the only one who was printing the story at that time. So that was my story, Cecil. But in the Artist Haven, we're all working together. And so the things that we were working through, like, who am I to think this? And then others would say, hey, look, that's actually not good thinking. That's not godly thinking. That's not God-centric thinking. And so we get challenged on the things that we're thinking. We get challenged on the way that we're believing and so on. I mean, flipping heck. Who does Steve Jobs think he is? And look what he's done. Who does Richard Branson think he is? And yet look what he's done. And I don't mean to say that in terms of negating the people that they are now, but when they began, how can you look at them and say, oh, they're so much better than I am? Rubbish. They've got 2 feet, the same as most of you will have. They've got 2 arms, the same as most of you will have. There's people who are blind who are in this book. Yeah. There's another project that I'm on with a guy who was a quadriplegic. In fact, he uses the only way that he can get his book out is to speak. He is incapable of writing. He is incapable of washing himself and cleaning himself and looking after himself. And I don't say that to diminish him. I say that to encourage you. If a guy like that can overcome everything that he's had to overcome and make a living from it, and we are working through that process, where did McDonald's come from?
Yeah.
It came from belief in what they were doing, and they kept doing it to a level of excellence every day. And then when there was one of them, suddenly there became two, and they improved on what they had, and they developed what they had. The original milkshake machine wasn't that great, so they've developed another one. The original beef burgers that they had, you know, they've developed those. You know, you never end where you start. But
No.
if you don't start, you never begin, and
Yeah.
you'll never get to the end.
Yeah.
You know, so what if it's a colossal failure? How much fun can you have on the way? You know, so what if you invest in yourself and you dare to dream and you dare to believe outside of the box that maybe somebody might need a book like Cecil Gets a Haircut to help understand their kid who's got autistic spectrum disorder or ADHD. You know, maybe this next book that I'm writing might be the one that puts the tools in the hands of the parent who just has no concept and no understanding and just thinks, why is my kid like this? You know, and to understand the diagnosis, and to understand that it's a point of starting, and to understand that it's a place to begin, and it's not a box to squish somebody into.
Yeah.
And that's what this whole process has been like. We start with the gem of an idea, and we connect with other people, and we connect with a team, and then we start coming together, and we mesh together, and then we start wrestling with questions, but we're doing it together. And we're always doing it from a point of strength. And we think, well, how can my weakness be somebody else's strength? But the beauty in me is that my weakness is that I ask a lot of questions. And people, you know, I could sit there in paralysis analysis or analysis paralysis, but what it means is that the things are that much better thought out, because my insatiable curiosity, how does this work? Pulling these things apart. Oh, that's how it works. And now I can't put it back together. But see, Carmel has a bigger vision, and she's able to say, hey, this is how this works. Hey, this is how this works. And she pulls it all together. And somebody else who's really good at editing is able to say, hey, we're doing this for the American market. Do we need to have this in American language? Do we need to have this in Australian language? And I said, well, hang on a minute. Why don't we honor where we come from? If we're writing from an American heart, we write with the American language. If we're coming from an Australian heart, why don't we write with the Australian English? You know, and so we bring all these different parts together, and we have something that is so strong. It is now far better, I hope, than what Carmel even envisaged, even though it's still within the parameters of what she set out to do, because together we've brought so much to the process.
Absolutely. It was
and we're
way
really
beyond.
connected.
Yeah.
And in the process, we've brought this phenomenal book,
Yeah.
you know, that you know, if you have the opportunity to get into a book like this, for crying out loud, go for the ride, take the risk, dip your toes in and see what it's like. You know, you can sit there and you can be afraid, but what's it getting you? 100% of what you believe in. So why not believe in something good?
Yeah.
Because it's the same neurochemicals and the same neurobiology that goes on around an idea of something deemed to be positive as something that's deemed to be negative. So use those chemicals, use those endorphins, use that dopamine to best effect, and do something amazing, something that you never thought you'd do. Be the artist on the front cover. Be the artist in the book. Be somebody who dares to give voice to your deepest concerns, fears, or worries, because there's somebody out there that has got the same fears, the same worries, and the same concerns, and they just want to know that they do actually have a place in this world, and that they fit, and that they're not abnormal, and that, you know, nothing comes to us that nobody else has wrestled with. So whatever it is that you're facing, somebody else has faced that too. So find your tribe, you know, find your tribe get out there, dream for something big. Oh, it's all right for you. You've got ADHD. You're not a worry. Yeah, that's a lie. Yes, I am larger than life, and I have huge peaks and I have huge valleys, and I've got to learn how to, smooth those out. Everybody has something they're struggling with, and we're all just trying to get home, wherever we deem home to be, whatever home looks like, whatever okay looks like. I've got no idea what it is, but I do have confidence that it is going to be okay. And so when I sit back and I looked at that first chapter at the beginning, and I thought, oh, flip, that's way too much. It's way too deep. It's so off task. And I went and I wrote another chapter, and I looked at it and I went, I'm really not happy with that. And Carmel looked at it and she said, it's not your best work. That's right. And I was crushed because I'd spent hours on it, polishing it and bringing it better and better. And then I held it up against the one I'd written first. And I looked at them both and I went, man, that's really scary to put this one out there in the public. But actually, it is a whole lot better. So if you haven't already read the book, if you haven't already got a copy of the ebook, get out there, get onto Amazon, find the link. It's the Artist Haven. Get yourself a copy. Get an e-copy, get a paperback copy, but get a copy, because there is something in there for everyone to be encouraged, to have your aha moment, and to maybe put a slightly different perspective on what it is that you're going through. But whatever you do, don't sit there in fear. Don't let it paralyze you. Make that step. Ask that friend, text that message. If somebody would text me and say, hey, I'm thinking about you, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. That would be the dopamine for me to get through another couple of hours. And maybe that's what somebody is looking for. You don't know until you try.
Yeah. And Sarah, it's so true. And our book's on Lulu, and with Lulu, the ebook has all the photos in it. This is such a unique book. We have colored photos. We have, everyone's individual personality, their artwork, their pottery, their poems, their songs. There's so much in there. And that was my heart. And there were a lot of hurdles that I had to overcome. With our ebook that's on Amazon, there's only one picture in each one of them. And then here in Australia, there's a platform as well that I had to put it on, Lulu and Ingram Spark. And I've learned so much. I didn't envision all that. And it was just God's grace with the team of beautiful authors that he gave me, who came beside me and supported me every step of the way. Tim was there, encouraging me, supporting me in his gentle, balanced, quiet way. Stephanie was there. Sarah was there. Everybody had their input. And I just feel so blessed that, yes, I had this vision, but God gave me all these beautiful authors. And, I've dreamed for years to get people's stories and to share them in a book. And here I am privileged to have this book in my hand and to have all of my beautiful authors. And, Samantha, her chapter, she is blind, and hers is Hands That See. And I had the privilege to go into Susan's art shop and Samantha share her story and her beautiful artwork and how she creates things. And it blows my mind, the people that God brought to this book, and the dream that I had. And folks, in the middle of it, my sister and my father passed away, and everybody shared grace and care towards me, and they just journeyed with me on that. So this has been such a very special time in my life. I felt with my dad, God said to me, well done, daughter. He's with me now, and there's lots for you to do, and you'll have the time to do that. And I miss my dad. I'm the youngest, And I had such a special relationship with my dad, but I know he's with mum in heaven now and he's living his best life. And then a few months later, sadly, my sister graduated to heaven as well. And, I had all these beautiful people who walked through that with me. And, now even at the moment, through all this too, I had quite a few of the authors saying, how's the process of that? How do you get a book on Amazon? How do you do this? How do you do that? What's the process of that? And Stephanie and I have had the privilege of doing Birth Your Book from Dream to Reality, and we're putting this series together. I never dreamed that I'd be doing that. I never dreamed that I would be on this international platform when God spoke to my heart really clearly in 2019 and said, you need to start writing again. You need to get out there and put yourself out there. And I know with my first book, Just Say No, I shared a very personal story of loss and grief in that book. But, that freed me up to see that it's okay to do that. We all have a journey. We all have a story. And, it was such a privilege to walk through that with Sarah and see her best work be produced in our book. And me as the coach and me as, the mentor, encouraging each one of my authors and going that extra mile. That's the thing that I love so much. And I've learned, and I'm learning that. I'm developing that, and I look at this this book, and it was just really the start of all the things that I can do. But I love doing it with people, and that's why, and I have all my own books, my heritage book and all of those inside of me, which are going to come out as well. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you for that incredible journey that we've walked on together as friends, as co-authors, with our beautiful book that, we can tour and we can share our stories. And what I love too is that each person in the book encourages each one. We all encourage and lift each other up, and that's what family is about, community is about. And I believe, particularly in this world of COVID, we need more community. We need more encouragement. And this is why I do this show. I love to share and see my authors shine. I love to be able to, encourage people to be able to get. I know that Sarah's books are on Amazon. She's working through some issues with her website as well, but we can pop those details in as well for you all to be able to connect with Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. She's just popped that up there on the screen. And, I'm just so privileged that I've had another amazing co-author, another friend who has come on and shared their heart. So thank you so much, Sarah. Is there anything else you'd like to say to my audience as we wrap up?
It's been an incredible privilege to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to take the mickey, to bring out the larrikin, and also to just really encourage, whoever, that's what it's about, is to encourage the one to do something amazing. We always sit there and say, why me? Why me? Who am I? Why not? Why not? Why not you? Who are you to play small? You're a child of God. He's a creator. Like, seriously, look at this. This is where I live. I love where I live. It is such an incredible privilege to live here. Why not? Why not be a voice in the wilderness, preparing the way? Why not? It's a crazy wild ride, but flip, I'd rather do that than live out a life of anonymity, and not do anything with my life. And if I have the privilege of doing that through writing, so much the better. If I have the chance to do that through gardening, well, that's pretty cool too. Or, whatever, however, just get out there and live your best life, because you really are worth it. Whatever shape that looks like, whatever field that looks like. Be self-taught,
Mm.
you know, do your own thing.
Yeah.
Work to the sound of your own drum,
Yep.
but
Do you,
be authentically yourself.
this is
And get a copy of the book. Get
this
a copy of the
proof,
book.
people, that I followed this dream that I have and had, and God reminded me this year to look back 10 years and look at what I wanted to do, and I've always wanted to write. But what a privilege it is to have not just my story, but all of my beautiful authors in this book and all their journey, and the privilege where they've trusted me as the visionary and their mentor and their friend to write their story. It's beyond words how I feel. I'm so proud of each one of my beautiful authors. I'm so proud of the journey and the experience that I've been through, because there's been lots of hurdles. And I know Stephanie would go, we remember that for the next book. Yep, the next thing we do. Yep, take that on board, the next thing we do. And with our course that we're doing, we're offering it so cheap, and we're telling you all the things. Don't go down this rabbit hole. Don't do this. Do these things so that we can help you. It's the same as this platform. So on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining another episode of The Thriving Woman, and I'll see you again in another episode. God bless you all.